Hello, I'm Wade Hudson.
I'm Cheryl Hudson. Welcome to Just Us and, a series of interviews with book creators and those who get books into the hands of readers. Today, we are so happy to welcome and have an opportunity to talk with our friend Phoebe Yeh.
Phoebe is vice president and publisher of Crown Books for Young Readers. Her career began in the mid-'80s with positions at Scholastic and HarperCollins. Her guiding editorial hand has nurtured the works of writers such as Walter Dean Myers, Kwame Alexander, Ellen O., Lamar Giles, Lincoln Pierce, and Nick Stone, and so many others. She was the editor of our anthology, We Rise, We Resist, We Raise Our Voices, which was published by Crown Books in 2018. There it is. And she is also the editor of the upcoming anthology, a follow-up to We Rise, called The Talk. Welcome, Phoebe.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Good to be able to chat with you. Our first question is, Phoebe, why did you choose a career in publishing?
You know what? It basically happened by accident. After I graduated from college, I was teaching English as a second language. I was teaching it very poorly. I was in Taiwan. I didn't care for it, and I was bad at it. And when I came back home to New York City, I thought, well, I better not go into teaching. Since I was an English major, I thought, okay, there's publishing. And so almost serendipity.
Wow. Okay. So did you have any other kind of background using English? You talked about teaching English. What about literature for children? You went into publishing for children's books.
Yes. So as an English major, I took a lot of courses, sort of American literature, Chinese literature, French literature, Russian. But the course that I loved the best was something I took senior year, second semester. I took it really for a lark. It only met once a week. It was taught by Jane Yolen.
Oh, wow.
And I was experiencing children's books and authors that I had never heard of because I had stopped reading children's books. And when I went to Taiwan, I brought 3 books with me. I brought Ramona the Pest, Pippi Longstocking, and the Journals of Sylvia Plath. You can tell I was, 22. So I come back to New York, which really was, sort of the capital of publishing, both children's and adult, and largely in part of, due to the course I took with Jane, I was only interested in children's publishing. Now recall, in the mid-'80s, things were very, very different, nothing like it is now. Nobody really had internships. I will share that when I accepted my job at Scholastic, of course, I had no idea that the company had almost gone bankrupt when Dick bought Family Computing. You just didn't research
Right.
businesses the way people do now and should. But I just knew I loved children's books. That's what I wanted to work on, even though I really had to learn the job. Well, I had no idea what it would entail.
You learned the job on the job then with Scholastic and HarperCollins and now Crown. And now you're vice president and editorial director and publisher of Crown. What are some of your responsibilities in that position?
What I get to do is I help to curate a list. So I have a co-publisher, Emily Easton, and together we form Crown Books for Young Readers. And we have a particular interest in working with debut authors. So Nick Stone, she was a debut. Lincoln Pierce, you mentioned him. He was a debut who actually had started with me at Harper. Same for Ellen, same for Lamar. So I had already had some experience with helping somebody with a new voice develop what they wanted to say in their first novel and then onwards. I felt very committed to that. I had done a lot of very heavily illustrated novels. I wanted to do more of that. And it became very apparent that having worked with so many diverse authors, starting on day one. My first book ever that Jean Feiwell allowed me to acquire was a folk tale, The Seven Chinese Brothers, in reaction to my distress about the five Chinese brothers. I had a lot of chutzpah back in the day. I just went into my boss's office and I said, you know, Craig, this book is such a problem. Look at these yellow faces. I'm not yellow. Look at these slanty eyes. And, you know, what's with this whipped cream? You know, most Chinese people are lactose intolerant. She puts whipped cream. And also, you know, she took the story from Us. There are multiple versions of that story, which I had read as a child. Anyway, I was full of vim and vigor, but you know, Jean and Craig were incredible mentors and very forward thinking and gave me a huge chance. So that really informed everything I did later on at Scholastic, at Harper, and now at Crown.
Now, Crown is an imprint, right? Could you just talk a little bit about what an imprint is?
Sure. So I happen to work for a very, very large publisher. We are indeed the largest publisher in the world and the United States. And our children's division is also the largest children's publisher. And we're made of about 6 or 7 imprints, and each imprint has a curated list. At Crown, you'll find a lot of diverse books, a lot of illustrated novels, a lot of anthologies, a lot of nonfiction. But another imprint, such as Delacorte, might focus a little bit more on middle grade and YA novels, and maybe not so much on picture books. Random House is known for publishing The Magic Tree House, Jenny Holm, Dr. Seuss. So every single imprint has sort of its own distinct vision. Every now and then, you know, maybe the reading customer doesn't make those distinctions, but certainly our librarians, our educators, and agents, that's part of their job, knowing what's coming from Crown, what's coming from Knopf, what's coming from Make Me a World.
So in terms of staffing, how different is the staffing from one imprint to another imprint? And then how is that staff sort of fit within the overall scheme of the corporation companies?
So after working at, after working on a big team, and that's really what happened at both Scholastic and Harper, I was ready for a change. I was most interested in working one-on-one with my authors, and I found that even though I loved my big editorial team, I didn't have the kind of time I wanted to work one-on-one with authors. So in coming to Random House, I knew that I was going to work on a much smaller imprint, and really it was going to be myself working with a junior editor. And that's really what happens. Emily has a junior editor, I have one, and we're complementary. Emily publishes in all age genres, but she had a little bit more of a focus on picture book and YA. My focus was primarily middle grade. And then I had a very specific kind of YA novel that I was interested in. And Barbara Marcus put us together. And what we do is, you know, part of what our junior editors do is they know what Emily and I are looking for. So that's part of their job, to know what makes a Crown book. There are certain books that Crown might not publish because that's just not our sensibility. And the junior staff and any interns we had when we used to have interns, that's what they do. We give them a reading list, because that's the only way to learn. You have to read the books. So because of that, Elizabeth, who is the assistant editor who works closely with me, she knows the kinds of books that I'm looking for. And of course, she's also developing her taste. in the literature and how she can also contribute to the Crown imprint.
So marketing.
The truth is, it's pretty, this is how it's been done for decades, and we have not really changed. Some people may have mixed feelings about is that good or bad, but that's the way we do it.
So marketing and sales then is done by corporate?
Yeah, so we have a different division of a marketing team, we have a publicity team, sales, finance. We work closely with our designers and production people. So that's why I miss being in an office, because back in the days, pre-pandemic, I would just walk down the hall. I would pass, marketing and publicity on my way to school and library marketing, and then I'd make a left, and then I could get to talk to production managers, and then I would go downstairs and talk to the designers. Well, everybody close by.
You're talking about a lot of different people who are involved in the whole process of publishing. And some people think, okay, it's just the writer writes something and then somebody does a little proofreading and then it gets into the marketplace. Can you take us through just the process from the beginning, acquiring a manuscript, how you curate that list, and up until the time the book is published and then reaches the hands of the reader?
Okay.
So that's a whole class, but
all right, I gotta be concise. So I had mentioned agents have to have a sense for what I am looking for. So that really starts, and to save us some time, most of the manuscripts come from agents, but that's part of their job, knowing what am I looking for? What is Emily looking for? Okay, I get a manuscript, probably Elizabeth has already read it and said, oh, I think this might be the kind of book we want. Then I read it, and then even before I talk about it with my co-publisher and with Mallory Lord, to whom we report, I am thinking about sales. We fill out something called a profit and loss statement, and before we can acquire any book, we have to know what we think we're going to sell. So I have to have a sense of what I'm going to pay, but I also have to know what is the price point of this book? How many pages? What do I think the production value is going to be? And then how many copies am I going to sell? Because the truth is, if I don't think I can make a profit, I can't really afford to acquire the book, because after all, this is a business proposition. So I have to think about all of these factors even before I proceed. But let's say all goes well, I share my profit and loss statement, and sometimes we are also thinking about marketing. So it is true that for a book that maybe is going to auction, I'm thinking, well, we're going to have to put more money towards the marketing, and oftentimes it means creating materials, and maybe thinking about publicity, which sometimes includes a tour. Obviously, because of the pandemic, almost everything is virtual now, and we're not creating physical pieces of either a display or a guide, but the truth is a lot of it can still be virtual. So there are parallels. So basically, let's say we buy the book, and then the truth is every manuscript, and I'll just talk about novels, you still need to work on it. So there could be some back and forth between the author and the editor. Oftentimes, even before acquisition, I have a call with the author, because I think it's just good to get to know the author. And I think it's important for them to know what I'm thinking editorially, because if we are not in sync, then that's okay, but then we should move in a different direction. They need to understand that there will be changes, and we have to be together. My job is not to tell them what to do, but my job is to try to figure out what they want to say in their novel and to help them write the best novel they can. But sometimes it means cutting text, sometimes it means rewriting. But my job is to try to figure out what their vision is. Okay, fast forward, at some point we have to talk about the cover. At some point we have to talk about our launch. The launch is the first time the other departments get to hear about the book. So that would be marketing, publicity, sales, sub-rights. One thing that I had not experienced really before getting to Random House, people in our finance department, people in our legal, our contracts department, they all come to launch. People in sales, they read the books, they talk about the books before launch. I had not really experienced that all that much elsewhere. But it's really, it just makes you feel good. It makes you feel really good to have this kind of interest from everybody across the board. Okay, so we launched the book, and then there's more conversation. The salespeople are looking at the numbers and, you know, can we really get that number? Marketing and publicity are thinking about the author and the book and the read and what do we need to do to help support this author in this particular book. And then there will be more conversations, and at some point a plan will be put together that gets shared with the author and the agent. And all of this is happening roughly 6 to 9 months before the on sale date. There was a time we had, well, you know what, we still have marketing, sales materials. For picture books, it's called folded and gathered sheets. For novels, advanced reading copies, and that gets sent to the book buyers because, and you know, this has not changed. They still read the books and then determine how many copies they will order for their account. And we sell everywhere. We sell to independent bookstores. We sell to the national chains. We sell to Amazon. We sell to grocery stores and to the big box stores, Costco, Walmart, airport stores, specialty stores.
Really a class in this whole process, but it's about a year and a half from the acquisition.
Exactly.
To the time you
exactly.
See the
Yeah, and in children's it tends to be slower because sometimes the editorial process is a little bit slower. And then for picture books, because we have to print our books overseas, that adds more time. But you know, I feel that and this is why I wanted to go into children's, because not that adult books can't last forever, but it's very different. This idea that you are creating a book for somebody who is still learning about who he, she, they are, and maybe there is something in a book that they, you know, a caregiver reads to them or they read themselves, and it gives them an idea of who they want to be, who they can be. I mean, that you can only do with children, like too late for adults. So that's the kind of thing, it feels better to me. And that's why I've always wanted to be in the children's part of the publishing, not as interested adult.
Yeah, we've known each other for like 20 plus years, right? And
long time.
Yeah, often, you know, you talk about your writers and your illustrators that you work with as being family. Can you talk about how you are able to fashion such a relationship with your writers, with your book creators?
I was very, very lucky. The authors that I still work with today, I mean, I have authors, I started with them at Scholastic and I still work with them. And that I learned something so important early on. You know, I know everybody says, you know, oh, you gotta be professional, et cetera, but what I found was if I got to know my authors and illustrators on this other personal level, it was better for the book. Like something happened, it just made for our creating an even better book together. And you know, the truth is, you know, actually my spouse had once said to me years ago when I would be going off to a conference, he's like, oh, you're just going to see your friends. Because the same thing with the librarians, with the educators, you know, we got to see each other several times a year. And we'd have like these mini reunions. But I discovered pretty early on that it made the books better. And, you know, you become, if you get to work with authors in this way, and I've been very fortunate to get to work on multiple books, especially when you have a chance to work on more than a book like this over a period of time, that's, part of it is just, it gives you ideas for books they might want to write. Something, because you know them this way, it may give you another way to edit them and to edit them better. So that's why I feel that goes into the mix.
Right.
It's
Any
not
new
just a
projects?
job,
Any new projects that you would like to share that you're working on?
What am I working on? Well, I shared the copy of this book. This is such an interesting book to me because of what has been happening to it. We originally planned to publish in basically sort of end of September, but because of some very sad things that have been happening around the country, we started talking about possibility to publish the book sooner. And see, this is the kind of thing you're supposed to do when you're an editor and you're a publisher. Like you sort of look around, like, we have a schedule that we do have to adhere to, especially because we're a very big company. Right. But every now and then something happens and you have to be able to respond. And, what I am so grateful to is this actually is a very difficult time because we have lost printers in this country. There's the pandemic going on. So when you want to do something like this, it affects everything in the supply chain. Everybody is working out of their home office. So it would have been tricky if we were all at 1745. So the idea that, really in about a week's time, everybody was able to figure it out and, sort of all hands on deck. They were going to do it anyway because what a stellar group of people at Random House. But I think that knowing what this book is about, which maybe I think you two you get to talk. Please tell us.
What is the new release date?
The new release date is August 11th. So just not even a month from now. Right. Here, I'm going to hold it up and Cheryl or Wade, please tell us what's going on.
Well, the talk, we're talking about a time period where there are protests in the streets, there are reactions about microaggressions, there's reactions against police brutality, murder of Black men. It's an awesome time. The talk centers around race, and the talk that you should have, Black parents have always had, tradition have had with our kids about race and navigating yourself in the world, but it's also about love and about truth and presenting those truths. So it really is an anthology that's a follow-up of one that we did with Crown We Rise, We Resist, We Raise Our Voices. And we've got 30 fantastic contributors from different ethnicities and perspectives, and we're really targeting middle readers. So Wade can talk more about the talk.
Yeah. But I was thinking last night, Phoebe, because the idea for the talk was really born 2 years ago. I mean, right after, actually before We Rise was released, and we felt that there was a need for a book that let readers know that there are talks that happen all the time, because there are tough subjects and tough issues that must be addressed. Like, for example, police profiling, how to let your child, whether it's a girl or a boy, know how to conduct him or herself when approached by a policeman, because sometimes the result of interaction can mean the end of a life. But I was thinking, although we thought about it like 2 years ago, it is so appropriate now for this particular time. It's almost like we thought about it 3 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. But as you know, it takes longer to create a book. And especially when you're working with multiple authors and illustrators, they have their schedules and you're just sort of assembling everything. It takes time and commitment, thinking about the different conversations. And just because you have the conversations doesn't mean you can't have a book. And sometimes I think people need a book. Right. Sometimes having the book is more helpful. So of course, this is of course what we do.
And it's a guide, and that's why it's really curated so specially in such a perfect fit, I think, for Crown. But we are about to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to go into a lightning round. That is a part where we just ask you a couple of questions, and we want you to give the first answer that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
My favorite children's book is Anne of Green Gables.
Okay. Okay, and who is your favorite author?
My favorite author is Walter Dean Myers.
Yep.
Okay, and that's not an extended answer. Who has influenced you the most?
Ooh, see, double. It is also Walter Dean Myers.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from working with him.
Yeah, so did we. Did we.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, technically it's like, are you supposed to be learning from your author? But actually, that's what can happen.
Yeah.
And that's what did happen.
What type of music do you like to listen to when you want to unwind? So I know you have a hectic schedule.
I have many answers, but I'm going to start with Joan Armatrading, who is somebody I listened to a lot when I was in college and then kept on listening to. But then I expanded, and the other go-to people are John Prine, sadly deceased, and Robert Craig.
Right, yeah.
Wonderful. What one thing would you like to do that you have not had an opportunity to do?
All right, this is embarrassing, but I was born in Baltimore, but raised in New York City. And except for that 9 months and 9 months abroad and then college, I have never left New York City. And this is something my first boss used to say to me all the time. He's from the Midwest. He'd say, "You have got to get out of New York and see the rest of the country." And to my shame, I have never been cross country. And I kind of think I better do this sooner rather than later.
Wow. Well, listen, this has been great. Thank you so much, Phoebe, for joining us, and thanks to our listeners for also tuning in. We do more of these really every week. We'd like for our viewers to join us in Just Us And, which is a series of conversations with book creators and those who get books into the hands of readers. We want you all to remember that
good books make a difference. Thank you, Phoebe.
Exactly.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.